Have you ever started playing a new game and just found yourself losing over and over again? I'm Blake Unlively, and in this video, if I've done my job correctly, you'll know exactly how to quickly learn and start winning at any game. How do I know that this will work? Well, let me ask you another question. Have you ever started playing a game with another person and they just seem to be better than you, even though it's their first time? Well, I'm one of those people. Cool, so if this video helps you out, I'd love it if you could hit that like button and subscribe, as this really helps me and supports my channel. Also, don't forget to hit the bell, as this will help give you notifications every time I release a new video, which is every Friday. Thank you so much to everyone who does this, it really helps me out, and I appreciate every single one of you. Alright, so I'll be breaking this down into 4 points for you, so it's a bit easier to study and learn. These 4 points are controls, game mechanics, patterns, and practice. Alright, so let's start with controls. The first thing to learn when you start any game is the controls. Without knowing the controls, you cannot really control your game, so it's a good idea that you start here. Jump into the key bindings and have a read of what each control does. Sometimes you might want to change your controls based on what you're used to on other games, so consider doing that too. Once you've finished in the menu, jump into a game session, preferably a free play or sandbox if available, and start testing each of the controls out. The number of buttons will obviously change from game to game, and some games like League of Legends or Dota have a lot of controls to master. Now, you don't actually need to learn all of these controls at the start. You just need to learn the basic controls. Once you've learnt the basic controls and you've started to master them, you can start incorporating more and more controls into your gameplay. Over time and with practice, you'll remember what each button does, so it will become more like a reflex than something you have to think about each time. This is eventually where you want to end up, but initially, you just want to learn the basics so you can get started. Now, when you start playing a game, do you like to jump straight in, or do you like to learn a few things first? Now, I'm gonna put a poll up in the top right, somewhere, so you can vote on what you like to do. Me personally, I like to jump straight in so that I can learn a few things, work a few things out for myself before I start actually trying to teach myself stuff. Once I've had a taste and I've worked a few things out, I'll jump out of the game and I'll start trying to learn and teach myself the mechanics so that I can improve. Which brings me to number 2, which is the game mechanics. The more knowledge you have about a game, the better your decision making. And this can often mean the difference between life and death, or winning and losing. Now, this can be broken down further into static mechanics and progressive mechanics. Static mechanics are more of a skill that you learn once, if that makes sense. Yeah, once you've learnt it, you can implement it in your gameplay and it'll instantly improve your performance. Progressive mechanics are more like a skill that you master over time. Perfecting the progressive mechanics will take a much longer time than learning the static mechanics straight away. So what you want to do is you want to identify and learn as many static mechanics as you can at the start of the game. A good way of learning these is searching YouTube for mechanics about your game. An example of this might be half flips in Rocket League. It is a simple but effective skill that you can learn, which helps you turn around very quickly. Once you've learnt it, all you need to do is use it. So identify them and try to teach yourself as many as you can, as quickly as you can, as they'll give you an instant performance boost. You'll also want to teach yourself the basics of the progressive mechanics so you can get started on them. An example of this might be your aim in a first-person shooter game. You know, initially you might just want to learn how to move your crosshair onto the target and then shoot at the target. Over time, you might want to improve on this. You might want to know how to, control your recoil or adjust your mouse so you have a perfect sensitivity. I've actually made a video on the perfect sensitivity. If you want to check it out, I'll put a link in the description. But getting back to it, just learn as many of the basics of the progressive mechanics as you can, and don't worry too much about teaching yourself advanced mechanics yet, as over time you'll improve and you'll start building yourself up to those advanced mechanics. Alright, point number 3, patterns. The idea here is to get an advantage, or any advantage you can, by identifying the patterns that occur in the video game you're playing. Now, I find that these are especially important in PvE games or games you play against the computer, as they occur all the time. Now, they can be important in PvP games as well, where you play against other people, but people are more unpredictable, so you have to sort of identify and get into the heads of your opponents rather than identify patterns. Patterns can easily be confused with game mechanics, But the way I remember the difference is patterns are something that occur in the environment around you, whereas game mechanics is something that you can directly affect through your action or skills. Now, when I say environment, I'm not just talking about what's around you. I'm also including enemies, other players, items, things like that. Basically anything that you can't directly affect but is part of the game. Now, identifying and learning patterns comes with repetition and analyzing the environment around you in the game. An example of a pattern might be how a boss attacks in a fight. Now remember that games are programs, and programs execute code that tell them how to perform certain moves or attacks. A boss might be programmed to perform 2 ground attacks and then an aerial attack, for example. And learning this will sort of help you to more easily dodge the attacks and then win the fight. But the whole point here is to just identify and learn the patterns, as this will give you an advantage and help you win more easily. Now the last thing that you want to do is practice. And I'm sure you've heard the phrase, practice makes perfect, and it's completely true. The more you practice, the better you'll get at the game. Now when I say practice, I'm not just merely talking about jumping into a game and playing it over and over again. You will improve doing this, but it will be much slower and you'll never get to the highest levels of gameplay if that's what you want to do. Now I don't know if you've ever played sport, but as a child I played soccer. So every Saturday we would turn up at a local soccer pitch and play against another soccer team, playing to the best of our abilities as our parents watched on from the crowd. Now what you don't see as a spectator is the hours and hours of drills and training and practice that's put in after school. Twice a week after school, my soccer team would gather at our training grounds and we'd go through practicing to dribble the ball, pass the ball, shoot. Our goalie would be defending the shots, and would do other ball skills in order to improve so that we are ready for the game day on Saturday. This is exactly how you should be going about training for your games, as it's exactly the same as training for a sport or other skill. You will get better a lot faster, and I really highly recommend you do this if you want to start playing at higher and higher skill levels. Thanks everyone for watching, and I really hope this video helps you get better at your games. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful, I'd love it if you could hit that like button, and also if you've got other friends who might like this video, share it with them and it might help them get better too. I'll be releasing a video every Friday, so make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notifications so you never miss one of my videos. Alright, and finally guys, before you go, leave me a comment below on what you're playing right now and the games you're trying to get better at. Awesome guys, I'm Blake Unlively, and happy gaming.